Demographics is not only a good story. I think Steve was right. I think demographics is largely a good story, that the potential in Africa's recent demographic growth is immense. I think I've spoken already about the acceleration of economic exchange. If we think about human history, great advances have tended to take place in cities. There's a theory, I can't remember the author of this theory, that talks about progress being the result of ideas having sex, and ideas have sex because people are concentrated in places of high density where they begin to have, excuse me for the repetition of these metaphors, but people begin to have accelerated forms of intercourse of various kinds, and by this I mean intellectual contact and exchange of ideas. So this is beginning to happen in Africa, and as Judd said, you talked about the difference between how governance is lived in a village and how governance is lived in an urban environment. As the urban environment begins to predominate in terms of African realities, this is going to be transformative in terms of both the economic life and in terms of the conceptual life, the way that Africans engage with the world, the way that Africans engage with their own governments, the way Africans engage with each other's, transforming identities, transforming exchanges of all kinds. But the negative side of economic growth coincides, of demographic growth coincides or overlaps with the climate story that Steve referred to. Some of the countries with the highest fertility growth rates in the world, or in Africa, which also means in the world, are Sahelian countries. And Sahelian countries are some of the countries that are the most exposed anywhere to climate change. And so in Ambassador Thomas Greenfield's remarks, as one would expect, we heard mention of Boko Haram, we heard mention of other sorts of Islamic terrorist groups. We often think of this as a Sahelian story. She said that the governments of the region need to do what they can to prevent or to attend to the causes of this sort of radicalism. That's all well and good, but if we could figure out how to do it, it would already be done. And the problem here is that demographics and climate change are combining in ways that are having an immense effect in that part of the world. And I don't think anyone yet has not just an answer, but not even a set of answers for how to address this yet. Mali, Niger in particular, Chad also, Burkina Faso also, but Mali and Niger have, I don't have the exact figures in my mind, but among the top 10 highest fertility growth rates in the world. And the populations of these countries, which are already marginal in terms of the ability to support agriculture and the raising of livestock, which are a traditional form of livelihood in the Sahel, is already very fragile and vulnerable and due to decline. And so we're heading toward a collision point where the Sahel will not be able to support the burgeoning populations that are already on the horizon. And this is going to create new crises for us, not just of Islamic extremism, but of immigration and breakdown potentially of traditional nation states that are legacies of imperialism and the colonial system.